That's my son Dylan back there on the drums. And we're here on behalf of Hyde Music, our friends at Hal Leonard, and Create Portage County, ladies and gentlemen, for the mass guitar class. That's what's happening here, okay? So I will give you the details of exactly what we're doing here and why we're here. But first I'm going to play a little bit, and we're going to do one of the tunes that is going to be part of the mass guitar class. And here comes the cat. Bilbo Cat's coming in here to speak with us. Cat, really? You're about to go deaf, little beast. We're going to do a little thing right now that's one of the tunes that we're using for the mass guitar event that's being done virtually this year due to the pestilence that's circulating our lands, ladies and gentlemen. But one of the tunes we chose was... it's a 12-bar blues. It's a funky thing. It's a boogaloo, to be honest with you. You could sing anything over. You could sing Mustang Sally, whatever you wanted to sing. You could sing a song I've got called I Think I've Gained a Quarantine, which is about, of course, my quarantine experience and my fascination with Captain Crunch with Crunch Berries. But be that as it may, this is a tune that's fun for a bunch of people to get together and jam over. So Dylan and I are just going to kind of play a little bit. And I took this little example from my blues guitar book that I did with Hal Leonard, and as an example of a jam track to be able to play along with. It's good for just rhythm parts, which I will dissect. And then there were 3 licks that were accompanying the sheet music. All of that is available at hydemusic.com. I actually put the link to the materials, both the MP3s and the sheet music is on the header of this post. So if you want to go there and download, you can see the materials as I talk about them. And I will, of course, take liberties with these things and show you a bunch of stuff that's not in there. But that's the purpose of a doggone workshop, am I right? Is you're going to learn some secret handshakes, some devil's secret words, some nostril movements, whatever needs to be done in order to prepare you to engage in spirited musical congress with your friends. In this case, in the key of C, for a funkified blues. Dylan, can you dig it? I knew that he could. All right, all right. Just like that. Can you dig it, ladies and gentlemen? Again, my name's Greg Koch. I'm here with my son Dylan back there. We're in our orange room here in beautiful Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, in the Milwaukee area, for those of you who are not familiar with that particular locality. We've been quarantined like everybody else, although it's nice to be quarantined with my awesome son, drummer, so that we could engage in spirited musical congress throughout this calamitous series of weeks and months that have befallen us. And the whole thing that's about this particular event is to cheer up people, for number one, for doggone sake. I mean, music is something that I think can alleviate a lot of problems in the world. Certainly, the kind of interesting thing about being in quarantine for me is that if someone says, hey, you got to stay home and do nothing but maybe play guitar for hours on end, I really don't have a problem with it, but don't let that get around. Because, you know, we don't want, of course, the sickness and everything else like that. That's a whole nother matter. But just the being at home part for me was not that much of a hardship. But there's an event that happens in Portage County. For those of you who aren't familiar, I actually went to school in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, which is in Portage County. And there's a nonprofit group called Create Portage County, which we urge you to support, and the links are attached to everywhere where this is being shown right now. And it's an organization that promotes the arts, which, of course, as we all know, contributes to a vibrant community. A community that does not have the arts being supported is, well, let's just say the alternative is so much better. Isn't that a cup half full way of saying it, Dylan? Can you dig it? And they put on an event every year in downtown Stevens Point, a place called The Square. I won't tell you folks what I used to do in The Square back in the day when I was going to Stevens Point. But let me just say a variety of wholesome activities went down there on Fridays and Saturday nights. And I had a band called Cold Shot, and we used to play down in that area quite a bit. But I went to school for music in Stevens Point, as a matter of fact. I majored in jazz guitar with a slight research grant by Point Beer, but we won't get into that. I don't encourage it. It's just, part. What? Anyway, so they put an event called the Mass Guitar Event, which I love the sound of this thing. It's where a bunch of people get together, many people as possible, and they all of various different skill levels, and they all get together and they play a song, and they feel this sense of community, and everyone gets to play together, and it's a huge event. It's not dissimilar to a thing that a buddy of mine in Poland does every year. On the first week in May every year, he does a thing called the Thanks Jimmy Festival. Thanks Hendrix, Jimi Hendrix. And they do it on the square in Wrocław. I always get it wrong. Wrocław, Poland. And on the city square, they'll get like 100 and some odd thousand people, and it's in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most amount of people playing Hey Joe at once. It's wild. I filmed it when I did it. I did it the year before last I was there. I've been there a couple times. But it's an excellent thing. And this mass guitar event in Stevens Point is a similar thing. But because of COVID-19 and all that entails, the event is not going to happen this year. So the people at Create Portage County got together with Hyde Music, which is a long-standing music store chain, a great group of people that have been around forever. I've done workshops over there at many different Hyde locations throughout the years, going back, I believe, decades, if we're honest. And they got together with our friends at Hal Leonard, who, of course, I have many publications with, and they thought, what can we do to kind of support music, this event, do something that would be fun, to put it all together so that things don't lose momentum, and that people are excited about music and can do something virtually as opposed to in person. So that's what this is all about. So they contacted me. I was all for it. And so we thought we would just do a clinic where I would just play and show you some stuff. And they thought, well, let's try to tie it in with what the event used to be, but is not taking place as it usually does this year. We'll do a virtual mass guitar video situation. And so you can so what they asked me to do is pick a tune from one of my books that might be something that everyone could play. And then people could submit videos of themselves playing these songs. So I've got many different publications with Hal Leonard, some starting out at very beginner, some at kind of intermediate level, and some that's more advanced stuff. So one of the books I thought would be particularly interesting that I thought would lend itself to this is just the Hal Leonard Guitar Method Blues Guitar, which I wrote, which I was allowed to use some copywritten material, and then I also did a segment on the back. The gist of the book is so that you start as like an advanced beginner, and by the time you get done with the book, you've accumulated enough skills that you could go to a jam session. If someone said, well, let's do a funky blues in C, you're gonna go, okay. Or if someone says, oh, this is more of a swing blues in B flat, okay, whatever. So you're prepared for that situation of getting together to play with other people. So I thought, perfect, I'll pick one of these tunes. It's a 12-bar blues. And there's a rhythm part, and there are 3 licks attached. So the one I'm going to go over first is this tune, Funky Blues, which we just did. Dylan and I did kind of an interpretation of, shall we say, and there's 3 licks that go along with it. Again, the materials, the sheet music, and the audio files for this stuff is linked above, and you can also just go to hidemusic.com, and you will find it on there as well. And you can download the stuff, and you can play along with the jazz. So what we want you to do is do a video of yourself playing along with one or 2 of these songs. The one is just the Funky Blues one, which we just played, and then there's a shuffle tune of I'm Tore Down, the Freddie King song, but just kind of the rhythm part of it. You don't have to. You can sing it if you want. I thought it'd be kind of funny if someone would make up their own lyrics in addition to playing along. You would submit your tape of you playing your version of your COVID or quarantine blues. Mine is, I think I've gained a quarantine, which is something I'm working on, ladies and gentlemen. I've been steering away from breakfast cereals for the last 3 weeks in an attempt to mitigate the carnage that was done by the first part of the quarantine, where I took solace in bowl after bowl of delicious treat. But be that as it may. So what we're basically doing is you go to the Create site. All the links are above, and you can submit. They have the rules for submitting and how you submit it and all that other kind of stuff. But the deadline to submit all the stuff is June 15th. And as you submit this stuff, there's going to be a variety of prizes that are going to be awarded to people that you're eligible by just submitting a video of you playing along to these songs. And you playing rhythm, you can play lead, you can do a combination of both. You can, as I said, you can vocalize, you can do whatever makes you feel all right. So let me get my Restream going here. One of the things we do is we're using this program called Restream, so I can actually see everyone's comments from all the platforms at once. So I'm gonna make sure we have that open and ready to rock. Okay, so as I said, submit your stuff by June 15th. On June 21st, it's actually a day called Make Music Day, and that's when all the finalist videos are going to be posted, and the people from Create Portage County are going to put something together of everyone, of the videos that they picked to be shared. So pretty awesome. So it's a way to kind of still do the mass guitar event, but to do it virtually, okay? So without any further ado, I'm going to start dissecting this funky blues, ladies and gentlemen. As a guitar player, what I've always strived to do is to be an excellent rhythm guitar player, so that I could, you know, in the jazz world, they call it comping. So that because you're complimenting somebody else, you're either complimenting the vocalist, another soloist, whatever the case may be. It's you do something to propel the song along so that it all congeals and everything is all well and good. And that's very, very important to do. In a jam situation, like where you have a bunch of different guitar players on stage at the same time, the one thing you want to avoid is a mass noodle event. You know what I'm saying? Where everyone's going at the same time. You want to be of the mindset of how do we all make this sound really cool and feel this symbiosis of all of us participating in this thing to make the whole thing great, not just me, 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 me. And then when you do solo, you want it to be a conversational thing. You want it to be like, what's happening? Hey, can you dig it? You know what I mean? And start building a conversation as opposed to just going, can you dig me? Can you dig me? Can you dig me? Wow, there's a lot of interesting syllables being used to describe musical activity. Anyway, so first things first. What's transcribed on here in notation and in Dylan, you could probably take a break for a minute if you want. Dylan's going to come and go as he pleases, but I'm going to give you a little lesson here on how to do this rhythm part. So basically, it's just it starts off with just a C ninth chord, and this chord is a chord that's used in all kinds of different music. I guess it's definitely a funky chord. You can do all kinds of fun stuff with it, but it's also great for blues stuff. I manipulate it in a million different ways. So let's just kind of start messing with it and see what we got. So what I'm doing here, I'm basically barring with my third finger at the third fret on the G string, B string, and high E string. Okay? And then I'm putting my first finger down on the D string at the second fret. And then I'm putting my second finger down on my left hand on the A string at the third fret. Okay? And the strum pattern, so I'm doing down, up, down. And I will use a little bit of palm muting, but I'm strumming down, up, down. And I'm adding these notes, these little bass notes. Now you heard when Dylan and I were just playing, it sounds pretty full enough that for a duo without a bass, it kind of covers the part because it's a makeshift, it's a ostinato pattern, a repeating bass line that works, propels the tune along. That's the first part of the tune, right? And then it goes to the 4 chord in the blues. There's 3 chords in a blues. You got your root, your 1 chord, your 4 chord, and your 5 chord. And the 4 chord here is going to be an F. And we can just do a straight F7 chord. So I'm going to do a bar chord. I'm barring here at the first fret. And then I'm going to put my third finger down on the A string at the third fret. And I'm going to put my second finger down on the G string at the second fret. So we can just hit that chord like this. There I'm doing from the third fret on the A string to the first fret on the D string. And again, I'm using a little bit of palm muting with my right hand. I just have that fat part. Fat's kind of sensitive to me right now due to my COVID, my quarantine that I've gained. Sorry, I can't leave it alone. Anyway, so I just use that part of my palm to just kind of. Those are all downstrokes, right? You can alternate pick if you want. But I'm just doing downstroke. Seems to work with the pick. So down, down, down. Again, the strumming pattern for the chord is down, up, down. Now, what I do a lot, just to kind of snazz it up a little bit, is I like to hammer on those chord notes. I'm at it a little. And then I go back to that 1 chord. A lot of times I like to slide into it. I'll go half step down. I'll just kind of. You can take the top 3 notes. You can actually go up a whole step, and you can slide down half step. I don't even know what I just did. Anyway, sorry. Then it goes to the 5 chord. It's going to be a bar chord here, G7. So I'm barring at the 3rd fret, and I'm going to use my 3rd finger on the A string there at the 5th fret, 2nd finger on the G string at the 4th fret. And I can also hammer that on. Now what I'll do is a lot of times I'll kind of go back and forth and do a bunch of different stuff, but sometimes sometimes I'll just kind of slide up from there. Kind of nice. Secret sauce, ladies and gentlemen. The idea. Sometimes I'll go up here and do it. So I can do, there's the C9 chord. I can do this C7 chord up here. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll take my pinky. So this bar chord here is a C7 chord. I'm up here at the 8th fret, barring all the way across with my first finger. Then I'm putting my my third finger down on the A string there, the 10th fret. Second finger on the G string there at 9th fret. But now for a little extra snazziness, I'm going to put my pinky on the B string at the 11th fret. That's the 7th note of the chord. So a lot of times what I'll do that's kind of fun is I'll go. So what I'm doing there is I'm doing that down, up, down. That is just kind of a different bunch of ways of just kind of taking and strumming the top 3 strings, but I'm kind of muting it. So for that, I'm doing an F7 chord up here. So I'm barring there again at the 8th fret, but I'm stopping at the A string because that's the root of the chord. And I've got the D string there at the 10th fret. I've got my pinky on the B string there at the 10th fret. And I might do a thing where I go, I'll slide that pinky up a half step. And then I'll go, it's kind of a secret stunt. That is, it's like an F minor 7 there for a split second. And then I'm going to hammer on. So I got my first finger there at the B string at the 9th fret. And I'm going to hammer on that pinky on the B string there at the 10th fret. The reason why I'm showing you this is because if a good way to jam with others, to play well with others, ladies and gentlemen, is when some person's doing this, somebody be going. When someone's doing this, or someone can go in. You get the idea. So you're building up little parts that people can do to complement each other, as opposed to having everybody do the same thing at the same time. Can you dig it? All right. Now you did hear I do have this little device. It's called a Neo Instruments ventilator. Normally, the band is myself, my son Dylan, and a great Hammond B3 player by the name of Toby Lee Marshall. And Toby plays bass with his left hand and with his feet. But he's an organ player, so he's got Leslie speakers. And prior to playing with Toby, one of the things I really love to do is I played in a trio with a bass guitar, drums, and myself on guitar. So I like the sound of a Leslie speaker. So when I'm playing with Toby, I don't necessarily use my Leslie type devices. Leslie speaker, for those of you who don't know, is that one that turns around when you see an organ player and you see that speaker that's turning. That gives you this Doppler effect, that gives you this cool. And you can slow down that spinner and it gives you this nice. Pretty doggone cool. So that's what I use for my Leslie simulator. Anyway, it's a cool little device. On the amp itself, I'm playing through my signature Koch amplifier, and it does have a harmonic vibrato on board, which I use quite a bit. races. Before I get into any of the lead stuff that can go on in the corresponding 3 licks, are there any questions out there? I see a lot of stuff coming in, and I haven't had a chance to address them yet. But I am heavily caffeinated, which is something that happens, ladies and gentlemen. Any questions on any of this stuff so far? Any of the participants in the mass guitar event that will be playing these tunes would like any clarification on any of these things? Now, again, to reiterate, folks, in case you're tuning in late, usually there's a mass guitar event that goes on in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, put on by Create Portage County. It's not happening this year because of the pandemic, so they're doing a virtual version of it, and I am teaching the tunes that are going to be used, and you could submit a video. All the links are attached to this post, if you will. One question we have here is string gauge, please. Well, Rich, doggone it. I use 10 through 46 strings, and I use those D'Addario NYXLs. They seem to last longer, they don't break, and they stay in tune right from the get-go, which is important for me because I like to bend the strings every which way from Tuesday. Can you dig it? Andy Boderman, he says, yes, sir, we get it. Are you gonna participate, Andy Boderman? We want to see you involved. You need to come down from Minnesota and make it happen. Can you dig it? Do we play over the tracks or do on our own? No, you could play over on the tracks, Tom. So you can download the MP3 from the Hyde website, and you could just do a selfie video with the stuff playing in the background. You can get fancy if you want and add the MP3 to, software and sequester it and then mix it with your guitar, or you could just keep it old school and and I've done this a lot and it actually sounds fantastic. You get your iPhone or your iPad and you just put on phone booth, you turn it around or whatever, your camera, on your device, and play the tracks through some speakers and then play along with it, and then you'll play along once and you're like, oh, the balance is a little off and the tracks need to be able to position it so that the speakers of the background tracks are a little bit better, and then just play. And it turns out great. You don't have to get real high tech with it, so don't let that cause you any angst. Because iPhone recordings and iPad recordings, or whatever their competitors' iterations are, they all sound amazingly good like that. So don't worry about what am I going to do? You just download the tracks and be able to play. I believe it cycles through 4 times. So as it cycles through 4 times, you can do the rhythm part, once through, maybe one way, maybe do the rhythm part another way, and then take a lead over the second 2 parts. Or you can come up with words. If you want to do a rhythm, once through playing rhythm, and then come up with your own quarantine blues song, and then do a lead over the top of it, and then I think that would be great. Unless people want to, and I'm sure that the people from Create Portage County, when they edit these videos, they'll be able to figure out what to do with the varying choruses and so on and so forth. I'm hoping I'm not giving erroneous instructions. But I think that's the case. And again, you can upload those to the Create Portage County website. Again, the links are above up until June 15th. And all the time up to June 15th, as you enter stuff, there's going to be some prizes given away. And Hyde Music is behind this, and Hal Leonard. So there will be some prizes for participating. Can you dig it? What are you thinking when you play lines, chord shapes, target notes, intervals, scales? Yes? Jeff asks. You know what? It's all of the above. But the one thing I want to show as the thing with guitar players that I find so interesting, and I talk about this in Skype lessons a bit when people do Skype lessons with me, and they say, I'm tired of when I'm playing that I seem to just play the same licks over and over again, and it's not very inspiring. I just feel like my timing's weird, and what I always say is that wherever you're at, technically and harmonically, whatever the case you want to say, Nothing's preventing you from making great music right now, as opposed to somewhere down the line. And what I mean by that is you have the ability to make melodies with 2 notes, 3 notes, and attitude. So it's better to look at improvising as saying a little statement and then maybe starting with a little call and response, and not think of it so much as, oh my God, what scale am I going to do over this particular thing? Oh, the chord changed. I could do that arpeggio. Oh, it's too late. What I suggest is just take it easy. Take it easy, Morghese. So what you want to do is, like for instance, in the key of C, which this tune is in. So we got C minor pentatonic that one. Okay. That scale works on all 3 chords of a blues. Am I right? Now, a lot of people add the added flatted 5th in there to make it the blues scale, and that's going to sound more like this. Now, all those notes work over all the chords of the blues. You got to be careful which notes you accentuate on, depending on what chord you're on. But for the most part, you're not going to get in any trouble for the most part, unless you just like stay on the flatted 5th the whole time. Then you might get some weird looks. But you can play any of those notes over a blues. So one of the books I did for Hal Leonard was this book called Guitar Clues Operation Pentatonic. What I wanted to do with the book was to keep the theory simple. So that I just basically use a minor pentatonic and a major pentatonic scale. I do add a flatted 5th to make it the blues scale, and I added flatted 3rd, which some people call, the soul scale or whatever you want to call it. But basically, it's the scales that if anyone's been playing for any length of time that's been starting to learn to solo, you know these 2 pentatonic scales. And then on top of that, add in things that people can, technical things that people can do with that amount of harmonic information, that all those notes are going to work over the blues tune you're playing or the roots rock tune, whatever the case may be. So I start off with doing things like, well, what happened to you slide up to notes? You can slide up to each note of a pentatonic scale. Or slide down. Sounds weird, but with just that much information, I can start a little conversation going. It sounds kind of jazzy when you slide as opposed to bend. I go. The idea, just with that much of it, it's totally doable, totally cool solo. People are like, learn it. It's a melody that people remember. It's fun to play. It sounds good. You don't need a rocket science degree to understand the theory behind it. It just sounds good. So that was sliding up or down and adding some sass and some triplets and whatever you want to say, just as far as the rhythmic attitude is something that you just learn and apply, but the amount of notes being played, you start this kind of call and response thing. So totally cool solo. I'd listen to that. Of course, I'm simple, but so that's the idea of sliding. Exactly, it's like having a conversation. That's exactly what it is. So it's a conversion. I think that every solo should be a conversation. That's the way I look at it. when you learn new licks, it's like learning new vocabulary words. But by the same token, if you learn a new vocabulary word, you don't just throw the word in everywhere just because you learn the new word, just because it's fancy. You learn the word recalcitrant. We're not going to go, boy, I was at the grocery store today, and the gal behind the counter sure exemplified recalcitrant tendencies. You could say that, but that would be a little weird. You were just, you were forcing it. So you don't want to force it. You want to learn and adapt new techniques and so on and so forth so that they're in there so that when it becomes needed as part of the conversation, then it makes sense to put it on in there, right? So, for instance, these licks. So I do kind of an Albert Collins lick. 'Cause I used to do a tune called "If You Love Me Like You Say" in the key of C. If you love me like you say. Yeah. Anyway, I used to do this Albert Collins tune with that groove, and so I thought it'd be cool to do an Albert Collins-y lick. The weird thing about Albert Collins tuning is that he tuned to like an F minor chord. The whole guitar was tuned to an F minor chord, and he would take he'd take a capo and just move it up to whatever key he was in. So if he's in the key of C, he's just going to pop that capo, I'm assuming here at the 8th fret, and then would just do his licks there. And the licks had a very specific sound. He didn't use a lot of different notes, but the notes that particular tuning gave him really sounded cool. So the lick that I put here was like a... So that's the lick that's transcribed there. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll do this. I'll add a little, because he would do this thing where he'd do an octave. He'd do the octave down because he's got the capo there. So he would do this little like slur. He goes, and then hit the note. So what I do is I just do the octave note. So I've got my first finger, I'm in the key of C here, and I'm going to hit that octave note. Or of the C note that I'm eventually going towards. I'm on the D string at the 10th fret, and I'm going to use my thumb on that. I kind of stash my pick in between my first and middle fingers, so I'm using my thumb to hit that D string. And then I'm going to use my first finger on the B string to get the... And then adding that vibrato. I'm kind of going up like a step and a half. So I'm bending that B string there at the 13th fret, and I'm going up a step and a half. And when I'm adding the vibrato, you can do vibrato a bunch of different ways. I find it's cool to kind of emulate Albert Collins' vibrato. It's a little wider. I'm just taking I'm using my second finger and my first finger behind the third finger, but the note's being played with my third finger on the B string. Okay? And I'm letting the pitch go up first. I'm kind of... Okay, and it's just kind of a cool little Albert Collins-ism. So I'm not going to play that thing verbatim as I would be playing, so I might do like a... That little lick, I just said, that's a good Albert Collins. He just kind of does a major pentatonic-y thing where... So I kind of use this, I use my thumb to kind of rake across. Then I pop up on the high E string there at the 10th fret and pull off to the 8th fret. Then I do the same thing on the B string. That gives you an example. But one of the things I wanted to show you, I see someone defined recalcitrant, which is uncooperative to discipline or authority. Kind of a way of life, but be that as it may. The Miles Davis quote: "When you hit a wrong note, it's the next note that you make it that makes it good or bad." That's true as well. When you do, like, if you wanted to do something fun over this funky blues, how are we doing on time here, by the way? We're doing good. Okay. A lot of times, taking away notes from a scale adds some delicious flavor. So there's a thing that you can do, and Albert Collins used to hang on the sixth quite a bit. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this scale where it's just do a root note. So I'm just doing root. So I'm up here at C. My first finger on the high E string there at the 8th fret. I'm hitting the 6th of the scale. So I'm hitting the B string there at the 10th fret. And then I'm hitting the flat 3rd. So that's the G string there at the 8th fret. And then back to the root. Now what if you only played those notes for a solo? Well, we could do different things. So last time we slid up and slid down. Here's vibrato for each one of the notes. We go. What does it sound if you just play a solo with those notes, okay, and made it conversational? So you got that. Oh, sorry. I always want to get that flat 7 that they're doing. Added some other notes in there too towards the end, but you get the idea. That's pretty flavorful. Just those notes alone are flavorful. So all of a sudden, do a solo with 3 notes and make it interesting. That, to me, is a better exercise for making good music in the moment, as opposed to saying, "Oh my God, if I only knew every arpeggio known to man or beast." No, the goal is to make music. The goal is to make music that pleases you, inspires you, and pleases others. So sometimes just narrowing it down to the basics is a good thing. Can you dig it? All right, some questions out there, ladies and gentlemen. Let it breathe. Right on, Tim. Right? There it is. Simply stated and heartfelt, ladies and gentlemen. Can you touch on using tasty double stops when soloing? Yes, Ron Hanks, I can. Folks, for those of you who don't know what double stops, what that means, because to be honest with you, I was playing for a long time. People would say double stops. Like, what the hell are they talking about? I did them all the time, but I didn't know what they were talking about. It's the idea of playing 2 notes together at the same time. Well, listen to the cat didn't like that one. I don't like double stops, he says. Get over it, cat. Welcome him. All right, so for instance, if we take that, this is another thing I do in that doggone Operation Pentatonic book, So in the key of C, this very tune, if we take the double stops that are available to us just in a minor pentatonic scale. So I've got these 2. I've got E string and B string at the 11th fret, my pinky. E string and B string at the 8th fret. Then I've got my pinky on the B string at the 11th and G string at 10. And then G string and B string at the 8th fret. Now my 3rd finger is going to be on the G string and D string at the 10th fret. And by the way, I'm getting both notes at the same time by using my pick on the lower string and my middle finger on my right hand on the higher string. Or you can just pick them both. I pick them simultaneously using hybrid picking, right? then A string, D string at the 10th, A string, D string at 8. And now we're going to do a one that's a little weird. It's pinky down here on the low E string at the 11th, and A string at the 10th, and then first finger on the E string and A string at the 8th. Okay, those come in quite handy. So I'm like. Do all kinds of different stuff. Or just that in those intervals, you can do different things like pick up our E string, B string, and then B string, E string, and the next one. Sounds good. And then to get a little bit, people are like, how do you do that stuff where you sound like it plays outside, Sometimes what I'll do is I'll just start like a half step down and go like. Or half step up. Right? Simple, but it sounds good. Doggone it. Then you start doing it faster. Any nail touching string on your hybrid picking hand? If so, what do you do if I mess up my nail? That's an excellent question, Jeff. You know what? I do use hybrid picking, and I've never used any kind of fake nails or anything. A lot of people do. I find that as long as I have a little bit of white of the nail showing above the cuticle, I got enough to pop the string. And in the many years I've been playing, even if I like mess up this nail, as long as I got a little something, I got enough to pop the string. So I've never been incapacitated, which is good. Simple riff over 4-chord, 5-chord, then 4-chord. You want me to show you one? Oh, I've got one. I've got a few, of course. This is a cool little one I took from Wes Montgomery. I actually used it in my tune Tonus Diabolicus, but it sounds totally different because I added a delay and arpeggiated it instead of played it as kind of block chord. So if I'm in C, it's kind of cool. So I go up to the G chord here. So I got my pinky on the B string there at 13, and my first finger's down here on the G string at 9. And I'm going to go up a half step with that first finger, and then back. I'm going to switch down here to the 12th fret on both the G string and the D string. Okay. Then I'll basically do the same thing, but down for the F chord. So I'm going to go pinky now at the 11th fret, first finger on the 11th fret on the B string, first finger on the G string at the 7th fret. I'm going to do that little slide. Then back down. And then I'm at the 10th fret, pinky on the G string, third finger on the D string 10. And then my first finger goes down to the 8th fret on the D string. Then go down to the 6th fret and then slide it up. So again. And then back to the root. That's a cool one. Wes Montgomery for the wind. Can you dig it? All right. The Gristle Master going through your amp sounds. Great on this side. Oh, well, thank you. I'm glad you're digging it. When you are composing and or also jamming, do you think about chords and scales specifically, or do you just hear sounds? It's kind of all on the table when I'm soloing. There's that conversational aspect. There is a moment of, I've been messing around with this different scale. I think I'm going to try to fit it in this next thing. I'll start it as my initial idea and kind of go from there. I know I can do this different inversion, and I've got this new chord inversion. Maybe I'll try to mess with it, but most of the time, just I'm in the moment, and whatever happens, happens, and I'm just kind of sussing it out with my ear. Although there will be some things where I'm like, that split second before I do the solo, how should I start this one out? Maybe I'll start out on the neck pickup clean. Yeah, let's go with that. And then that'll be the only thing I'll think about, and then it'll just start from there. Or maybe I'll grab slide for this one. All right, yeah. And then I'll grab the slide and do it that way. So it might be an initial impetus of a tone or a technique or something that might start the conversation, but then it just goes from there. And in that conversation, there will be the myriad of scales that I've worked on over the years, or substitutions, outside playing, maybe some allusions to some tunes. If it's a tune that reminds me of maybe another artist or something, I might throw some of, the way I've reworked, Albert King licks or whoever it might be into the equation. But it's all kind of on the table. Can you dig it? All right. How about a little chicken picking lesson? Yes, we can do that. I'll get to that quick. Okay, folks, chicken picking. That's this idea of, a lot of times I'm doing that kind of stuff, a lot of times it's aided and abetted. I want to get to just the basic gist of what chicken picking's all about. That's the sound of the chicken picking. So what I'm going to do is on the A string of the guitar, I'm going to put my first finger down. So I'm stashing my pick between my first and middle fingers. So I'm putting my first finger down on the A string. I'm putting my thumb down on the same doggone string, right? And then the thumb plucks a note that's muted because your first finger's right behind it. So you get this just big old thud. And then you're going to pop up with that first finger. So what happens is that the thumb plucking a note that's muted because your first finger's right behind it, you get this pretty substantial thud. As you start chicken picking faster, you still hear the note a little bit more. It's not strictly a percussive thud. It's a muted note. And then what you do afterwards is I'm using that first finger to actually pick up the string and pop it. So you got this. And what I recommend to do is just take like a blues scale and just chicken pick every one of those notes. The same thing using hybrid picking, which is going to be my middle finger and my pick. So I'm going to put my middle finger down on the A string. I'm going to put the pick down on the same string, and the pick hits a note that's muted because your middle finger's right behind it, and you get that more of kind of a metallic thud, but a thud nonetheless. And then I'm going to pop up with that first finger and get that pop sound. And hear that with the blues scale. Grab one string, run. Right. And the third way I do it is I do a thing where I choke way up on the pick, and I'm basically doing pinch harmonics as my chicken pick. So it's something like that. So I'm alternate picking, and so one of the notes. They're both kind of hybrid. They're both kind of pinch harmonics, but I'm choking way up on the pick so it's barely there, so that when I do this alt, so I'm going down, up, down, up, down, up. So here's the different sounds real quick. So if I'm playing with my fingers and pick, or just with my fingers with my pick stash, is here's the pick and the fingers. pinch harmonic. Get the idea. They all have their purposes. Okay. Before we forget, I want to get to the other tune that we've chosen as the mass guitar video event selection, which is just a 12-bar blues of I'm Tore Down, the Freddie King song. And it starts with a little intro, which goes from the 5-chord down to the 4-chord to the 1-chord, and then back up to the 5 for a little turnaround. And then it just goes into, 12-bar blues shuffle. And it's this kind of a feel. Okay. So with those, I find that I like to use palm muting. You can actually do all downstrokes. If you do all downstrokes and use some palm muting, you can actually choke up on the pick a little bit and maybe make them pinch harmonics as well. Now, interestingly enough, is that the chords that in the other one of the funky blues, that was a blues in C as well. So you can play the chords from the funky blues one over this tune if you wanted to maybe do one chorus where you're doing the and then do the other ones where you're doing chords. And then the lead ideas work as well. And again, all of that stuff is available from the link up above in your, or below, depending on how you're watching this. You can go to hidemusic.com or Create Portage County has it on their website as well as, and both of those are linked above or below depending on how you're looking at it. So, Henry Grabowski asks, Allman Brothers use melodic or harmonic minor? Not usually. What Dickie Betts would do is he'd use like a Dorian, but he'd also throw in like a major third in over a minor third. That's something that's done quite a bit in blues. You know, when people say, "Is it major? Is it minor?" Usually the answer is yes, because you're playing minor thirds over dominant seventh chords with major thirds, or sometimes you're playing a major third. So it's kind of open-ended. But he used to do like over. Over A Memory of Elizabeth Reed, he'd go. So he starts off here on the major third, which really doesn't make sense. Usually be just doing the minor third, but he does the major third. It works because he's Dickie Betts. And that's a flatted fifth, so he's really just adding the blues scale in there, so it's like, it's not really a scale. It's like he's adding a major third into a Dorian scale, but he's putting the flat fifth in there as well. So it's kind of, it's kind of the whatever it takes scale, right? Major third, weird, but it works. So there you go. Major, mostly all, and of course the Allman Brothers did a lot of stuff in majors like Blue Sky, you know. Good old majory activities. All right, right, questions, folks. We're getting down. Oh my God, it's been an hour already. It goes by so fast. So again, to reiterate, the mass guitar event this year that's usually in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, which is where I went to college, cannot happen this year as a result of the coronavirus situation and people being in social distancing and so on and so forth. So they cannot do this mass guitar event put on Create Portage County, which is a great nonprofit group that supports the arts and the community. And so Hyde Music, a music retailer that's been around the state of Wisconsin for a long time, which I've done workshops many times over the years. And also Hal Leonard Publishing, which is also a Wisconsin entity and someone people I've worked with for quite some time. Thought it would be great to do something to try to reach out to folks to say, hey, the arts are still happening, playing guitar is great, let's do something to try to salvage the spirit of this event this year. So they thought it would be fun to pick a couple of tunes with some jam tracks and have people be able to download the jam tracks and to play along with it in any way of their choosing. You can make up words, you can jam, you can play rhythm over it, whatever you want to do. The links are up above to download the pages and also the audio files from Hyde Music, and all of the instructions in terms of how to participate is at Create Portage, Wisconsin. Again, the links are up above. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I think we're going to play one. Dylan, you want to do one more little jam? Dylan's going to come in. We're going to play one more little jam. Eric Gale asks, am I going to be doing this more often? We'll see. You know what? I do enjoy the instructional aspects, and it's so weird when I do, all the different internet stuff I do, whether it be all the Wildwood videos or just the various content of people videotaping, or not videotaping. What decade am I in? Of just loading stuff to YouTube of our band playing, or the guest spots I do in various internet shows and whatnot. People go, man, it'd be so great if you'd come out with like an instructional course. I'm like, I have 17 books and videos with Hal Leonard going back 20 years. So I've got a bunch of stuff. The latest one came out last year called Brave New Blues. There's a book of transcriptions of some of my songs that's coming out this next year. Hyde Music certainly has been a great support in that regard. They have all that material. So check it out. All right, we're going to, let's see. Do you ever purposely practice 3-note per string pattern? How did that technique come about? I ask because I've heard glimpses of that technique in live versions of Spank It. Probably the 3-note per string pattern. Austin, that's kind of the 3-note per string thing I've done for a while. I think that's a good way of exercise. If you're going to do any kind of fast alternate picking things, I've come up with various different 3-note per string things. Although now my buddy Andy Wood showed this cool thing where you do 2s and 3s. So you do 2 on one string and then 3 on the next, and then we just repeat it octave up ad nauseum, and it's really cool. It's really a cool fast little thing. But yes, I've done that quite a bit over the times. Anyways. All right, folks, we're going to do a little extemporaneous version of I'm Tore Down instrumentally, and I'll add some other secret sauce to it. And then I believe we're all done. Thank you so much to Hyde Music, of course, to Create Portage County, city of Stevens Point, my old alma mater. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to leave you with a little blues in the key of C. have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.